Yeah, it's even just like things that I mean, this sounds so absurd on its face, but like okay, with the Trump, Trump getting hit up by the FBI or whatever a couple weeks ago, which is interesting. Um, Trump in his like defense of that says, well, I had those documents because I'm able to just like the president can just declassify whatever he wants. And I had passed that executive order, which sounds so absurd, right? The president can just pass an executive order, which just means he signs a piece of paper that says that I can just have the power to declassify whatever I want so that anything that comes across his desk is then declassified, right? Which is just such a like, I don't know, MC Escher of like, of
Yeah.
like, kind of legal justification of just like having someone sign off on whatever, you know what I'm saying? But that has existed since I think Bush was after 9/11 in the justification of the state of exception, right? Was the first to kind of push that forward. And then Obama later this had the same kind of executive thing. And so it kind of then it normalizes itself, right? And so the state of that's the whole idea is that the state of exception, it doesn't even have to continue as a kind of high level hysteria. It's that once it's sort of established, it then has just now set the new kind of parameters for the state until another is established and another is established, and it just kind of grows and grows from there.
Yeah, these are very complicated issues when you get down to it, because on the one hand, you would think, what, Trump can declassify things without any permission as president? And that might seem alarming to us because I think a lot of us think that to the degree that Trump is empowered to do anything, it's not really great. But the bigger, it would think about the alternative, which would be that the state secrecy apparatus is totally in the hands of unelected spooks. I mean, that's kind of the alternative. That's something that comes up in Watergate, 1971. A year before the Watergate break-in, Nixon's trying to get Richard Helms to tell him about what the CIA knows about the Kennedy assassination. He's saying, it might come up again. And if it does, I want to protect the dirty tricks department. I mean, he makes this, you can hear this on tape. This really wasn't well known until I published it in my book. And then Jefferson Morley also published it in his book. I got it from his blog initially.
Yeah.
So props to Morley for putting that out there.
Gotta love bloggers.
Yeah.
Shout out to old school bloggers.
I mean, I think I'm thinking about putting a blog. We're gonna put one on the website to sort of act as a alternative to the Twitter thread kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping maybe it can be a more.
But for your blog post, you have
thing.
to use the thread emoji just to like kind of get people
No,
acclimated.
Absolutely not.
That would be a weird new thing for people to do.
Well, they can be adapted. You can take one from the other, but the bigger issue is this issue of secrecy.
Yeah.
It needs to be thought out. Like and Nixon in that discussion with Helms, he says like, how is this really supposed to work? I mean, the next president comes in and doesn't even really know what the government was doing beforehand. Like, this doesn't make sense. And these are all Nixon's actually pretty reasonable there, and so it's a fascinating thing to think about. Who should be in control of this kind of secrecy? Because I feel like this is the keys to the secrecy. Overriding secrecy is a major component of exceptionism and the way that we've been governed, and it's there needs to be a bigger debate about it.
Well, I mean, that's sort of a thread that runs through this whole thing is that there's like these politicians that come and go. Sometimes they come and go by democratic means. Sometimes they come by democratic means and leave, dead. But there is this like huge layer of unelected, unaccountable, really, bureaucrats whose job it seems like, all right, you could occasionally have this guy, maybe not a captain necessarily, or a captain, but not the navigator of the ship, if we're using that as sort of a metaphor. But all of the crewmen, all of the people, in the engine room, all of the people who are, are piloting the thing, they are not necessarily loyal to the administration or democratically accountable to anybody. Their job is to actually keep a permanent presence and keep this ship sailing no matter what. And a lot of those people think it should sail in a certain direction. And if the president disagrees with them, any politician disagrees with them, there can be some pretty serious consequences.
This is true. This is why Alan Dulles sort of spat under his breath toward the end of his life that little Kennedy, he thought he was a god. And this is, this is the way that they would think of people who would want to redirect policy. Because this is they have different interests. One of the big fictions or myths of our system is the independent whatever.
Yeah.
And whenever you hear that, it usually is indicative of high fuckery in some way or another. The Supreme Court, independent, really? No. What really independent is more or less code for subservient to the establishment. I mean,
Yeah.
think of the parliamentarian, the Federal Reserve, the judicial system.
Yeah.
These are all like made by appointment. They're given enormous power, and when you look at the way that they actually operate, they serve the top of the politico-economic hierarchy of our society. And this is another aspect of it. This is anti-democratic power, anti-democratic dynamics that are animating the regime.